How emergency services work and emergencies underground. Welcome to Australian Mining for New Starters, and recently I've been asked to talk about how mines rescue works underground, whether it's full-time or how do you become an emergency service person. So we'll have a look at that. And I'm going to use the WA system as the example because the WA system, you've got to have a mines rescue team on each mine site, but they're not a full-time team. It's a part-time thing that you do normally 1 day a week that you go and you do a whole heap of different activities to prepare for if anything happens underground. And every mine site in WA has to have a team, or they have to be able to make up a team at any one period of time. So with fly in, fly out, that normally means if you've got to make up a team of 6 or 8, then you sort of you need 20 people on deck. This means that they need people from all over the mine site. So not only do people participate in mines rescue from underground, but also from the mill, from the camp, from the office. There's a whole heap of people that volunteer for that. You don't get paid any extra, but what happens is you get sent on courses, and if you sent on a course and you're doing it in your time off, then they have to pay you your normal your normal daily pay. So when I first went on mines rescue many years ago, I was had to go on a few courses, and I was newly put onto the bogger at the time. And I had a number of 3 or 4 day courses in Perth that I had on my week off that they had to pay me bogger rates for, which was a nice surprise to have in the pay packet. The tax man took most of it, I must admit. But one of the things that you learn when you do the courses, when you become a safety rep or you jump into mines rescue, that you realise that they have to pay you what you'd normally get paid for all the work that you do in mines rescue or as a safety rep. So that's why they don't really want a whole heap of jumbo operators being on mines rescue. They want to feed the new people in, and as you get more experience and you go up the food chain and your daily rate goes up, there's that they don't often want you to move on and let more people underneath come through. So that's the way mines rescue works here in WA. Over in New South Wales with the coal, sometimes they have permanent people just associated with a mines rescue team, and especially in the US they do that, and Canada as well. And in Europe, they have people just sitting around waiting for mines rescue to happen. We don't do that here in WA. You only assemble the crew on a training day or if there is an emergency underground. And a good way of looking at it is this is the emergency response competition that they do, and these are all the things that you learn. So you'll do a course on firefighting, vehicle extraction, search and rescue, breathing apparatus, so that's normally open breathing and closed breathing circuit if you're underground, theory, team skills, ropes rescue, so they love hanging people off stuff. I'm a fairly big guy, so they used to love hanging me off the mill, off the tanks in the mill, or off the head frame or whatever. So lots of fun doing all that sort of stuff. First aid and incident management. So you do all these courses, and like I said, they pay you to do all that sort of stuff, and you become part of the team. And if you went on this competition, and this is last year's competition, they'd pay you for the time that you spent on the competition as well. It's a good thing to get into, and it's a good way to network with people. And I recommend that if you're new to mining and you've got the opportunity to do it, then do it, because you never know when you're going to get stuck in an emergency. And that's the other bit that people wanted to know about. They wanted to know about emergencies underground. So I've been involved in a few emergencies. I've had a few fires on boggers that I've had to put out. I've been involved as a shift boss with a couple of people that have had truck fires on their trucks, and they did everything right, so it all goes fairly smoothly when people have absorbed the training and do what they're supposed to do. It only goes sideways when people don't do the right thing. And I suppose the biggest wake-up call that I had to that was probably about 4 months into when I first started, when I was scaling with a guy, and this was back, a long time ago, where, a lot of people felt that safety equipment was optional, and we were scaling, and the big thing is if a rock slides down your scaling bar, drop the bar. And I can tell you for why, because on this particular occasion, a rock slide down this guy's scaling bar, and instead of dropping the bar, he gave it a flick to flick it off like you'd cast a fishing rod. And instead of it flicking off, it did a great big 360 around it, and it continued down, and it caught the bottom of his right hand on the scaling bar. And I thought, oh, that's that looks not great, but he was lucky there until he held his hand up, and the three fingers, his last bottom three fingers, were all just being held on by skin. And the rock that slid down, it wasn't very big, but it was razor sharp. And shit like that happened all the time back in the day. And that's why, they want you to know the rules, and they want you to follow the rules. Because if you drop the scaling bar, none of that shit would happen. I've had another guy that was scaling in a basket for me, and there were two of them in there. And I talk about white line fever when people get involved in scaling when they only see the rock and they don't look anywhere else. And this guy, it's exactly what happened. He only saw the little rock that needed to be scaled down. He just nipped it and grabbed it, and you could see the look on his face as soon as he did it, because it fell straight down on the guy standing next to him on his forearm, and it literally split his forearm from his wrist all the way up to his elbow. There was like 67 stitches or something ridiculous like that had to go into his forearm. And, everything else like that, it's one of those things that when you see it happen, you just react to it. And, like I lost my shirt that day, literally, because I had to wrap his arm up in the shirt and take him upstairs and all that sort of stuff. And then got him into the hospital, and they didn't want to stitch him. So Royal Flying Doctors down to Perth to stitch him up and all that sort of stuff. And he was back on site within, 2 or 3 weeks. But, the valuable lesson was that, when you're scaling, always look where you're scaling. It's just stuff like that does happen. With underground, the big things that you're looking out for are rock falls, which I've also had a couple to deal with as a shift boss. You're looking out for fumes and, just general stuff that can go wrong. And it's one of those things that people need to understand, that the mining workplace isn't like a normal factory workplace or anywhere else, because what you're doing is you're going in, you're boring holes, you're shoving explosives in it, you're blowing the living shit out of the ground, then you're coming back in and putting ground support in to control the hazard, and then keeping on going. So, the whole time you're progressing in a hazardous environment that is consistently changing. And that's why, they're so paranoid about, accidents underground and incidents underground, and they're so paranoid about people knowing exactly how to do things the right way. When you get to site, they don't want people that are going to reinvent the wheel. They want people that will follow instructions until they feel it's not safe to do so. Then they want people that will pike up. And, that's what they're looking for. They're not looking for people that want to try and, like I said, reinvent the wheel, because there's a reason that you're doing the job the certain way that you're doing it on that site. And unfortunately, the whole industry's been built on blood over the last 150 or the last 100 years that we've been mining in the gold fields around here in Australia. And to our credit, in the last sort of 20 years, we've come across leaps and bounds to the point where, the injuries and the fatalities and all that sort of stuff, they still occur every now and then, but they're nowhere near the frequency that they were before. And that's all down to following the rules, understanding the rules, and being really anal about following those rules. So that's why, with everything that I do, I encourage people to study as hard as they can and learn as much as they can. And that's why the sponsors training, the $450 DIY package, is such a good investment in yourself if you're a new starter, because it's just going to give you all that information that a shift boss would want you to know before they went underground on their crew. So I hope that you find that information helpful. And emergency services, mines rescue, it's a part-time thing here in WA, and especially with the hard rock mines around Australia, whereas it might be a full-time thing overseas. But like I said, they've got to pay you at your normal rate. It's a great thing to get into. They've got competitions that you can go to, and if you become a really good team, then you can end up going around the world with that sort of stuff, because they do that. It's just about engaging in the culture of of participating and getting on with it. So, like I said, I hope that information answered your question, a bit about emergencies and a bit about mines rescue. And if you could share this information around and like and subscribe to the channel, that would be wonderful. Thanks.